That's a text. That's a text. That's a text. Over there's a text. Down there's a text. Everything's a text! For this paper, the textual analysis paper, I'm going to put you inside my head. Warning, it's scary in there. Have you ever wondered how your teachers choose the readings that you have to read? Well, when I choose the readings, I try to find stuff that are going to keep the students interested, on the edge of their seat, just full of excitement, verve, and life. That's not my only purpose for choosing them. I also want things that are going to help you learn, and I feel pretty confident about my abilities to do so. But this isn't about me. This is about how you would do the job. And that brings us to the Textual Analysis Essay Assignment. As always, the assignment sheet lists a lot of due dates and lists all of the details. Check your own specific copy of the assignment sheet to make sure you have all the proper dates. But this one will be a 4-page paper. We have a pre-writing, a peer review session, and the paper gets submitted. The concise version of the assignment: select a specific unassigned article from our textbook as your subject of analysis and make an argument detailing how the article should be used to teach critical thinking and the benefits of doing so. Alternatively, you may choose an alternate text from some other media as long as you still argue the critical thinking angle. And like always, I spell it out in more detail. You've by now noticed that while our textbook is entitled 50 essays, we're not actually using 50 essays. That'd be kind of rough, huh? So, why the chosen essays? What qualities do they have that makes them suitable for our class? And why not work from other writers in the anthology instead? For this essay, you will select one article from our textbook that is not currently on our course schedule, and argue the specific course should use the essay in question to fulfill the course goals. Alternatively, you may select a text from some other media. A film, podcast episode, album, television episode, something like that. And the assignment sheet, as always, spells out more detail. While this will, of course, involve critically analyzing your specific subject, whatever article you're talking about, it will also require you to connect your reading of the text to the academic and intellectual aims of the class, whether explicit or implied. As far as the explicit ones, the syllabus spells out right at the beginning student learning objectives. These come from the university. Which student learning objectives does this article fit? And by now you also know that I like to think a lot about critical thinking skills, how to question everything, how to go about doing that, and how to put them in terms of argument. This is how I think about articles, and it's how the essay assignment makes you want to think about it. As always, I give you some sample working thesis statements, just guides to get you to think about it. Now, let's talk about some examples. First one, an actual article we are using from 50 essays is Eigner's on dumpster diving. It's nice to know a little bit about dumpster diving in case you ever end up having to do it, the economy being what it is and all, but that's not the reason I gave you this article. If you get some good stuff diving in dumpsters, let me know about it. But the main purpose is because it fits in a lot of the things we're talking about in class, and the things we have to know in class. The top student learning objective says that students are supposed to be able to establish a purpose and create a thesis in their own writing and be able to identify purpose and thesis in the writing of others. Well, Eigner wasn't writing academics, so he doesn't have the explicit thesis statement. But he has a definite purpose, and he has definite claims he's making, and can you find them? Gives you some practice in doing so yourself. Student Learning Objective 5 says develop critical reading skills, including the ability to locate rhetorical features in a text, identify the audience for a given text, and identify strengths and weaknesses in an author's argument and reasoning. And Eigner works out well for this because it sounds, and we talked about this in the Eigner video, you'd think by the title name that this is going to be a how-to, but he's quickly going in other directions. How well does he do that? In addition to that, we have the learning objective of demonstrate the knowledge of how genres influence reading and writing. And while this isn't about producing writing in this genre, you're reading something from another genre. You're reading something that's not scholarly. And one of the things you should see is how different it is from the scholarship which you're learning how to produce. Also, develop arguments and perspectives through the successful incorporation of research, examples, details, rhetorical appeals, and counter-arguments. And this is one of the reasons I have you do reading reactions, because it forces you to do this kind of stuff in reaction to the reading. Reading reaction, in reaction to the reading. Now, how it fits into specific goals, some specific things I was thinking, this gives you an outsider perspective, which is vital to critical thinking. Critical thinking is largely about looking at other perspectives and seeing how well they work. What rhetorical appeals did Eigner use specifically? And we've talked about these when we talked about the article. How did he organize his stuff? Because it's not an academic article, he did it a bit differently. What were the effects of that? How would it be different if it were an academic article? And what lessons did you learn reading it? What lessons did Eigner want you to learn? Now, because it's not an academic article, he doesn't have the clear in-your-face thesis statement, which I expect, but he does clearly state some lessons. Take what I can use and let the rest go by. I have come to think that there is no value in the abstract was one lesson he tried to get you to learn. The other one was the transience of material being. Mental things are longer lived than other material things. And this definitely fits the goals of the class. I'm not trying to teach you that material things are bad, but knowing how he makes that argument is a good thing. The assignment says in addition to using something in the textbook, you can use something that's not in the textbook. As long as it's a good source or you can argue it fits in with the aims of the class, you can use pretty much anything you want. I have been listening a lot to the Tech Won't Save Us podcast. I teach using technology, and I have to understand technology. And if I look at just the stuff that's coming out on Amazon, about Amazon, on Facebook, about Facebook, I'm going to get a very one-dimensional view of that technology. Tech cheerleaders don't help me, so I want to see someone who's not a tech cheerleader. There's one particular episode of Tech Won't Save Us that was an interview with David Gerard, an author. He's an Australian IT systems administrator, but he's also known as a cryptocurrency skeptic and commentator on cryptocurrencies and NFTs and blockchain technology. So, someone coming at the subject with a lot of knowledge. The thing that got me about this interview when I heard it first was that he identified as a Luddite. Now, Luddite's a word you've heard a lot, and usually when you hear the term Luddite, you hear it in this dictionary definition, a person opposed to new technologies or ways of working. And that doesn't really fit Gerard. He's not someone opposed to new technologies. He's an expert in them. He's an IT administrator professionally, and he's intellectually a blockchain specialist. So he knows these things. His definition of Luddite probably fits in a lot more with the historical definition of Luddites. The original Luddites weren't people who hated all technology. They were people who had direct first-hand experience with technology because they worked in factories and saw their jobs being replaced by technology. And it wasn't just that their jobs were being replaced by technology, but it had real effect on them as people. They weren't as valuable if their job could be replaced by machines, and more or less they didn't think the machines did the job as well, and they thought the machines themselves were dangerous. And look, if you read the history of early factory life, factories were dangerous, horrible places to work. And this is a definition that David Gerard fits into a lot more. We could go through the student learning objectives one by one, but this definitely fits in with all the ones we talked about in the last article. And in terms of more general ways how this fits into the course, we get an outsider's perspective again. We got a different level of rhetorical appeals than we got by reading Eigner. It's organized a lot differently because it's a different genre, and there are explicit lessons in it again. Another thing I thought about for this class is over the break I ran across an article in Nature. Nature is one of the all-time great academic journals. This is an article by Adam Mastriani and Daniel Gilbert called The Illusion of Moral Decline. Daniel Gilbert's a name you should know. He's a Harvard psychologist who wrote a book, Stumbling into Happiness, which was all about how we're more ruled by logical fallacies and cognitive biases than we'd like to admit. This particular article was fascinating, but it was written towards a certain audience, and I was worried that in a Comp 1 class, if I just gave you this, it might be a little bit brain-frying. Luckily enough, shortly after running across that article, I ran across Adam Mastriani published a version in Experimental History, which was a short version for more mass consumption. And this was pretty cool. He's, in this version aimed towards a non-academic audience, he's a lot more plain-spoken than a straight academic would be, and spells out everything he's talking about. And he even sums up the point of the article. Do people in general think morality has declined? Yes. And if you read the actual article, he gives you a lot of numbers and statistics about that. Are they right about that? Probably not. People think the world is getting a more morally inferior place. It's a much more dangerous place, a much more evil place, but they're probably not right. So why do they think it? Could be lots of reasons, and biased memory plus biased exposure might be one of them. Now, if I was to give you one or both of these articles, it would definitely fit all the student learning objectives we've talked about with the other two. I think it would also probably fit in with student learning objective 6, locate credible scholarly sources, evaluate the reliability of those sources, and effectively use those sources within a text. Well, we wouldn't be using this in text, but we'd be doing the first parts of them. And particularly if I were to give you both the version from Nature and the more accessible version of this article, it would also help us really get into how writing is different from genre to genre, which is another thing that pops up in these all the time. Look at student learning objective number 2. If I were to get more explicit in how this fits into the needs of the class, critical thinking again, because it makes us rethink a lot of our assumptions. Everybody is convinced the world is in a worse place now than it was 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. And this article makes an argument that that's wrong. It focuses on some nuts and bolts argumentation issues, logical fallacies, and cognitive biases. If you by any chance take me for a Comp 2 class, these are things I talk about a lot more. And as I said before, I could always do a comparison contrast between the version from Nature and the more accessible version, which would really give you that genre comparison, which fits in with the student learning objectives. Now, I think about this stuff an awful lot. I put in a lot of thought and effort to try to make sure that our readings do the job they're supposed to do in class. And frankly, my brain's a little bit tired from it now, so I want to see how well you can do with it. And the more actively you think about why you're reading things, the more value you can get out of those readings. And that's good, right? Right? Right. So that's the textual analysis essay. I hope you enjoy getting a chance to look at these articles from a different perspective. There really is purpose behind everything I do in here, and I want to make sure that the stuff we use, hopefully it's enjoyable, yeah, but does it teach you the stuff you need to know? Do you get a chance to look at stuff from different perspectives? Do you get a chance to learn how to better analyze stuff? And I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Thanks a lot. See you next video.